Cool. Right. I think we are live. Cool. So, if anyone's joining us today, hopefully we are live. So I'm just going to quickly check. But today, I'm obviously super excited. I'm interviewing Oscar, who I've known for some time, and I'm really interested to learn more and share about his journey in scaling. And the reason why I will just kind of give you a quick heads up right now is that Oscar obviously has been selling on Amazon for a while, but also as well, he's like pretty much outsourced the business. And I love that. Like he's doing other stuff, and I always follow him on Instagram, and he's like running marathons. So we'll learn more about that in a minute. But just give me 2 seconds. I just want to make sure that we're actually all running. So 2 seconds, I'll check that. Oscar, just like obviously while I'm kind of like getting set up and make sure everything's running, do you just want to introduce yourself and like tell us a little bit about like who you are, what you're doing right now, and like the business? Tell me about that.
What's up, everyone? My name is Oscar Padilla. I've been selling on Amazon since 2021. Before that, I have experience playing around with eBay, Facebook Marketplace when I was drop shipping on those platforms. I still have a W-2, still actually in a master's program, and I invest a little bit in real estate as well. And I love to travel. And like Tom said, I recently started getting into marathon running.
Wow, cool, absolutely love it. Right, 2 seconds. So if I just check, I think we are streaming, and then we are good to go. Cool. So you just talk us through. Obviously you're from the States. Whereabouts can I ask?
California.
California, cool. And then like, run me through, where is the business right now? So you're selling on Amazon, is that right?
Yep.
And run me through, like, tell me about the business. So like what business model you're doing, if you're happy to share revenue, like last month, do you have a team? If so, tell me the breakdown of the team. I would love to hear about just like, what does today look like?
So right now, we do a little bit of all business models on Amazon, except for private label, but that is something I've been studying more and more about. I do have some ideas as far as products that I think I could bring into the marketplace. But that's just later on down this year. What we've been doing for the last year strongly, online arbitrage is primarily the biggest source of income for us right now. We do some wholesale, more wholesale in very niche categories that are, I guess you could call seasonal. Before the whole restriction of some listings, we did a lot more wholesale. And actually, I recently got out of beauty, so we lost a lot of the distributors that we were working with. But with that being said, OA is still about 60-70% of our business, 30% wholesale. And the goal for this year is actually to really open up a brand direct account. Haven't got too much luck with that yet, but I have had a conversation with some brand owners.
I love it. And obviously you do some RA as well. I see that.
Oh yeah, so RA. So now that I have a little more time on my hands with everything that I do, I actually really enjoy RA. So I started doing RA after networking with some sellers that just told me about it. And actually, it's weird. The reason why I started doing RA is because I know one of my strengths is being able to talk to people, like meet store owners. So I figured when I was trying to open up accounts with brands, just trying to work with stores to open up the accounts for me, and then I could purchase from the stores. But then I realized that if I found profitable inventory at one store, I would just build a relationship with an employee or a store manager and just try buying bulk that way. And I had a good luck with that in starting September, October-ish, and it just from there it just kept on going. So now I do have a couple of stores where I'm able to run in, spend about $5,000 worth of inventory, come home. I do have to prep that inventory myself, so every now and then you'll see me and my fiance working on Saturdays. But the margins on those products are really, really, really good. So that's why I'm going to continue to do RA. And I feel like that's just a very easy way to get into start buying bulk quantities from the local franchise stores around you.
Yeah, I love it. So you do OA, RA, wholesale, not private label though, is that right?
Correct.
Cool. And you do RA because you enjoy it, don't you? It's not because I have to. It's like, I've got time on my hands, I'm bored, I'll just go try and do that.
Yeah, so I do it because I had extra time in my hand, and I'm also a very high energy person. I'm very fidgety, so I love the whole OA and the wholesale, being behind the computer and working, but sometimes I just feel like I need to get up, meet people, talk to people, touch things, walk around. Well, I mean, I work out almost twice a day, so I can't stay behind the computer all day. So RA is perfect for me, but I also do it because of the really higher margins that I have for OA or wholesale. But a lot of the stuff that I have been getting really high margins are from relationships that I've also built with the store managers.
Yeah, I love that. Absolutely brilliant. Brilliant. And you obviously have you got VAs at the moment. Like, what's your team look like?
Yep, I do have one, two, three, four sourcing VAs. Uh, Last year I had an admin and I had a purchasing. Now I just have a admin, but she does the checking out for me. So I still now I went back to reviewing the deals. So that's what my team looks like. Uh, One admin that does the checking out for me, and then I have the sourcing VAs. The reason why I actually went back to wanting to look more at the products was I could go and tell the VAs as to what type of products that we should be reaching out to the brands after they find it and what's been selling well, just to be able to identify like leads that we should be targeting for wholesale. I haven't had much success with that yet, so I just figured I'd do that myself and then walk them through the process, jump on and telling them, this is where we found this one. These are the leads or this lead. We should find more than one supplier. We should be emailing for better pricing or bulk quantity purchases, or also finding distributors, but first going through the brand and then looking for the distributors that way. So I just felt like that part I haven't really mastered as far as working with VAs. But then I haven't really mastered that myself either. So I wanted to be able to do that, and then
Cool.
then we'll go try to open up accounts that way.
Cool. And we'll jump into the VA side in a minute, but also as well, like I know like you said, you're super active. You work out twice a day. You're running like outside of Amazon. Your marathons. You talked about property. Like, tell us about that.
So actually, everything that I learned from working with you in Amazon, the exact same principles. I hired a VA to help me with the real estate side. So as far as identifying, analyzing the property that we wanted, that was all working through the spreadsheets, calculating the numbers. That was all done with the support of a VA. And then as far as managing the rehab, keeping track of what we spend on material, what we paid the contractor, putting the utilities on our name. So I was able to, the exact same principles I took with Amazon, put it into real estate, and she pretty much managed that whole project for me. So I'll actually be finishing up sometime this week on one of the properties that I bought out of state over in Akron, Ohio, and I've never even been there. So we did the whole thing virtually. So
Wow.
yeah, so most of the work, I don't really have to go out, do anything labor-wise. So that's why it's very easy as far as time management and the way I set it up. And then the working out that I do, yeah, since I don't do, well, when I'm not out, when I don't have anything to do, I'm not doing RA or any of that or day-to-day job activities. So I'll just go. One of the goals for this year is to complete a marathon in under 3 hours and 5 minutes. So that's what I'm working on in my free time.
And how often do you run marathons?
The first marathon that I ran was in San Diego last year. Then I did a marathon over in Hawaii a couple months in December. And the next marathon we're going to do is somewhere in Southern California in April.
Wow, they're crazy. Like, I always thought about doing marathons, but I thought, no, it's like, there's a lot of other stuff I want to kind of do first. But honestly, I take my hat off you. Like, it's a long distance, and like, you're not even just trying to run a marathon. You're trying to get like, was it sub 3 hours time, which is incredible. Like, it's an amazing feat. Like, super fast. So what I will just say, if anyone's watching, the whole point behind this is to help people scale their business. And we're offering right now, you can get our free 90-day 30K VA scaling challenge. Just comment the word 30K VA down below, or obviously you can like look at it on our website. You can download it from Fast Track FBA. It's going to help you to talk about how we've scaled, and that's free. You can get it. But I'm going to be asking Oscar some questions, trying to understand a little bit more about, or sharing what he's learned and how he scaled his business. But if you guys want to drop questions down below, whether you're on Facebook, whether you're on YouTube, or even on Instagram, drop them down below. And then after I've done the interview or asked the questions, I'll jump over to the questions. After I've asked Oscar my questions, I will jump over to the questions that you've put. And obviously I will get him to answer those as well. So we've got about an hour with Oscar, and obviously we can kind of learn more. So let's just kind of take it back, like right back to the beginning. You said you've still got a W-2, which for those who are obviously not American means you've got a job. Is that right?
Correct.
And why did you start selling on Amazon?
Because I love to travel, and I love to travel very luxurious. And my W-2 is not a very high paying W-2 job, but I figured I like what I do. It's remote, so it's not too demanding. Um, but I figured if I was going to make big money anyway, it was going to be from doing something business related. And actually, I was a store manager at a nutrition store for about 5 years. And before that, I worked at a GNC a Radio Shack for about from ages 18 to 25. So store operations came very natural to me. And I just really enjoyed sales.
Wow, cool. So, and then obviously, Amazon was the view that you could not only build a business, you could do it remotely, and also you can travel with that. Is that right?
So yeah, that's a big part of probably why I love Amazon so much. So as I mentioned, we just recently did a marathon over in Hawaii. Because of Amazon, we that trip was paid for in points. Um, the business was still running. A couple months before that, we were in Mexico City. Actually, a couple weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, we were out in again back in Guadalajara and then Puerto Vallarta the whole time during Q4 traveling during January, usually times where it's pretty busy on Amazon. So the business is still up and running, but working out of hotels, working out of pools. So that's the one thing that I just really enjoy about Amazon.
Cool. No, I love it. And obviously, you've traveled a lot, and I've seen your stories. You're like, you've done business, but have you done first yet?
We've done business. We have not done first class yet. So that's still on the
You
bucket
need to,
list.
you need to get that done. That's all right. Obviously, I
Yeah.
look forward to seeing those stories. So, and obviously, for you, like, how did you first learn about selling on Amazon? Tell me through that journey.
I first started watching the YouTube, I believe it was the Reezy Resell YouTube videos way back in the day, talking about 2020-ish. And I should have taken action back then. But for whatever reason, I ended up at drop shipping on Facebook Marketplace, which I did pretty well with. And that's where I had the first experience of working with virtual assistants. So just had them listing products on Facebook Marketplace. And uh, then I even went as far as having them doing the checking out from, we used to use Walmart and Amazon, sending it to customers. So I had good success there. And then something about Amazon just back in the day just intimidated me. I think there were just too many moving parts. And uh, yeah, that's one of the things that I struggled with. If I see something too complicated, I'd probably shy away for at first. But now that I'm a little more confident in what I'm able to do, uh, I think I just took must have been one of Miles' first course way back in the day, just so I could learn a little bit about Amazon. Tried it, had a little success into it, did it for about 6 months on my own. And that's when I ran into your program. And then from there, it just kind of took off.
Cool. And I remember obviously like when I remember the first time I met you, I think you were doing like 30K a month. And it was all OA, was that right?
Back then, it was all OA. So
Yeah.
I started OA to prep. I had no clue how to prep a shipment. I don't think I prepped a shipment till well after $100,000 a month in sales. I actually started doing my own prep once I started doing a wholesale, and then now retail arbitrage.
I know you talked about it earlier on, but just like, why did you start with OA? Why not like, a lot of people like think about wholesale, like they're like, oh, I don't like doing OA, like it's not a long-term sustainable business. I want to do wholesale because it's bigger, it's more sustainable. Like, why OA is the beginning?
Because I'm a pretty lazy guy. I didn't want to touch products. I didn't want to stress too much, and it always just seems so simple. It's simple, but it's not simple. It's you buy the product, you ship it to a prep center, and you wait for it to sell. And if it sells, you go and buy some more. You find it cheaper, do it over and over again. Retail arbitrage, I didn't really want to do it because I didn't want to be in the store. I didn't want to be scanning. I didn't want to. I don't really like shopping. So I mean, now that I know what I could get out of it, I'll do it. And I didn't when I started. I didn't want to do wholesale because I didn't want to invest $5,000-$10,000 into something that I didn't really know if it was going to work or not.
Okay. And so I know when we first met, you were about 30,000. I think that was right when we first met.
Yeah.
Tell me about that journey from 0 to 30,000.
0 to 30,000. It was simple but difficult at the same time. Simple but difficult because up until 30,000, you really don't really see any profit. You really can't pay yourself anything because you're too busy trying to grow. You barely really understand the way inventory cycles work. So I did not have the best systems in place, but something that I always understood is buy low, sell high. So that's pretty much what my system was. Um, I did have experience. So actually, I probably started working with VAs way before than what I probably should have. But again, I only did that because I already had some profits from drop shipping on Facebook Marketplace that I did not mind spending the $600-700 a month on the VAs that I had at that time. So it made it very simple for me. So the same time that they learned how to source, I was learning how to source. So we took a lot of L's, which is probably, again, that's something that I don't really mind learning. I don't mind learning the hard way these days. Again, because I could afford little losses. But yeah, it was not easy. It was, for every 7 good sales, we saw just as many bad sales, probably
Wow.
inventory that we shouldn't have bought, or we bought too much. Just learning lessons of that sort.
What did you like? What's the learning in that? So if I clarify, you're saying in 0 to 30K, one of the big challenges was buying bad deals, buying too much stock, which is really common. Like, how did you overcome that? Tell me about that.
So something we learned in your program, we learned how to analyze what went right and what went wrong, and create an action plan as to what we can avoid or minimize the stuff that we did bad. So I know a very big example, something a lot of people do is on the Keepa graph, they buy at what the current high price is at. And that's something that I struggled with VAs, with my team is, um, well, I personally, the way I like my VA sourcing is I don't want them to estimate the sell price at what the current high sell price is. I always want them to look in the offers tab and see what the most consistent uh, drop in an FBA seller price was. So, because I always tell them I'm going to anticipate I'm going to want to undercut that person if we don't sell it within 90 days. So try to just, I had to teach my team how to go based off of the average consistent, but also checking the FBA offers tabs where their sales are actually happening, not at just at what some FBA seller has priced at. And I think that's very difficult for some people, myself included. Sometimes when I used to source, because you think we found something like a 20% margin, but in reality, it's just priced there. It doesn't really mean it's selling there. So that's a big difference.
Yeah, I think it's a really common one. As sellers, we're like, sourcing's hard. Let's just be honest with that. Like, it's not easy. As much as everyone does YouTube videos, shows you like, oh, I found this much today. Like, it is hard, and it gets easier when you know where to source and what to look for, which is like I would define as a niche. And like, they're always changing, by the way. Like, it might last 6 months, it might last a year, but it will change. Eventually that'll get saturated and you've got to find a new one. But the one thing, because it's hard, when we're looking at pricing, we're like, oh, it's 20%. And we're kind of being 20% generous on the buy box price, where we're not like, actually, this is, like, hey, this buy box price is quite high relative to historical. And so therefore, it's probably more of a 10%. Like, we probably shouldn't buy it. But because we're like, oh, man, I've worked all day, I deserve to buy a good deal. And you're like, no, you just buy crap stock, which is
Yeah.
like so common. So 0 to 30K, obviously you grew, you had to learn a lot about kind of improving deal analysis, really to stop buying rubbish and start buying good products which help you compound better because you're not losing so much money. Um, Now, it's not like you hired a VA, but when did you hire a VA on your journey? When did you hire your first VA? Because I appreciate you said you've done it before on Facebook, but like, when did you hire your first VA in selling on Amazon?
So the two VAs that I had working with me on the Facebook Marketplace drop shipping, I brought those on with me the same day I started Amazon. So we all learned together,
Cool.
which was why we probably took so many L's, because I had them sourcing and I was learning what was a good deal and what wasn't a bad deal at the same time they were. So the whole time they thought they were doing good deals, I made the mistake of thinking, oh, they found a good deal. That's what they know. And then it's actually when I started. So a big mistake I made actually when I started Amazon was thinking it was going to be as easy as drop shipping on Facebook Marketplace was, when it really isn't. Because drop shipping, you don't really have to pay for any inventory, but it's against terms of service on Amazon. In case anyone's listening, don't do it. But when you're selling on Amazon, you actually have to buy the inventory and you have to actually estimate that it's going to sell at the price that you want it or need it to sell at. So I think a big part of the mistake that I was just not very paying attention to the consequences of the leads that I was buying, as opposed to right now. I think we do a very good job at analyzing worst case scenario, best case scenario, what kind of sellers are on that listing. Does a brand, do the titles match? We pay attention to all that type of stuff now.
Cool.
But
So go on.
actually, what was interesting going back in time is the two VAs that I had, and then I believe the first time I hired a VA from you was before I joined your seller academy. We all learned from a lot from that VA, just kind of what you guys taught in that training program. And then I was like, oh, okay, that kind of makes sense. And then that's after that is kind of when I got a little more obsessed and I started taking a little more courses, and then I learned a little more about myself. So about sourcing and purchasing and whatnot. And then I went in and retrained my whole team.
Wow. Okay, so talk me through, like, you had two VAs from the beginning, which obviously I think you're kind of implying you wouldn't recommend for normal people because it basically increases, if you do well, you're going to do well better. But if you do bad, you're going to do bad more, which is basically like you said, you made a mistake, the VAs made a mistake, so now it's like 3 times the mistake, you plus 2 VAs, 3 times the mistake. But you had a bit of money, so you could afford to take the losses. Why? But obviously, like you said, you came to us, you hired a VA. Why? Like, why did you come to us? Why did you hire a VA from us? Why? Obviously, you had 2 already. What was the reason behind that?
Well, it's not very difficult to understand that we're not doing as well as what we could be doing. So I, like I said, I'm a pretty lazy guy. I didn't want to learn, and I didn't want to source myself. So I was just figured, let me actually just try to purchase a VA from one of the VA training services to see if they would be better, they could be better, or they are better, doing better than what we're doing. And we did have a good amount of luck with. I actually think we still have all 3 VAs that we hired from you guys, um, and a lot of them have been with me for over 2 years.
Wow.
So we learned a lot from the way that she was working. But I think going back to a little bit what you mentioned, if I recommend it or don't recommend it, I think in my position, I was still working and I still had the little luck that I had from Facebook Marketplace. So I wasn't planning on living off the Amazon income. So to me, I see it as like a business investment. Like if they start from the bottom and grow work their way up, the business will be better off in the long run. That's why if you are in that situation, I guess it would make sense. Just go ahead and hire a VA right away, but understand that your VA is not going to be as good as you want her to be unless you understand the material as good as you want to understand it. Because but if you're patient enough to go through those struggles with a VA, it'll be easier. Like I said, I didn't want to source 8 hours a day. That's one thing I would definitely outsource. But if you don't mind sourcing, which is probably better, then go ahead and do it. Just understand that it's what we were going over easy. You're going to be sourcing for an hour, 2 hours. You're going to find something that you want it to be a 20% margin, but it's realistically not going to be 20% margin.
And I love it because you're obviously doing 6 figures now, and you're doing marathon running, and you're doing property, and you've still got your job, which I think is hilarious because I think you enjoy the job, don't you? Is that the thing?
Yeah. So the reason why I took the job I took is because I also wanted to learn about real estate. So I work with low income housing, so it works perfectly to what I'm doing in out of state rental properties right now. So figured it's like a win-win situation. Learn while getting paid.
Education's the most important thing. So important. You just talk me through. So you you said obviously you hired a VA from us. You had 2 VAs already. You hired a third one from us, and you said you learned from them how they work. What did you learn? Tell me about that.
Some of the first things that, for example, we didn't even have a very organized spreadsheet. The same spreadsheet that you send your VAs with is what we use now. I think when they came, this was back 2-3 years ago when storefront stocking was really popular. So I was just asking her, like, what was her method to storefront stocking? Why was she doing it that way? What did she learn in your program? Then running through the coupons. So it's that type of stuff that I didn't have my VAs doing. That, I mean, you think about it now, it's like, how is that guy not running a coupon? What is it, Rakuten or the Capital One shopping app? Just simple stuff like that we just maybe overlooked, that one of your VAs already kind of was doing it. But even then, just the process of going through the leads of what's a good lead, what's a bad lead, not spending too much time on a lead that clearly doesn't meet criteria, so it makes no sense, and continuing to analyze it. I feel like that's now that I actually wanted to take on the challenge of hiring a VA myself, I noticed that sometimes I'm not sure why people, or not just people, sometimes I do it myself. We're just looking for something that we want to find in that keeper graph that's just not there. So at that process, just skip it, move on to the next one. Those are little things that we picked up from.
I always use my analogy for dating. It's kind of like when we meet a girl, it's kind of like, obviously you've got, I think it's a girlfriend for a long time, but it's like when we meet a girl, like we've been single for a long time, and all of a sudden we meet this girl, and we think she's like beautiful, but she might be crazy or something, or like, obviously equally same for the guy, or it might just not be the right match for us, but like because we've spent so long looking for it, we're like, we want to make it work, and you're like, no, you should just move on. But we get so attached to it, so it's quite common.
So one of the VAs that I actually work with is they'll be scrolling down the historical offers, just trying to find a movement in the offer tab that sold at a price that we needed. And at that point, I'm just like, you spend almost 45 seconds trying to show me where you found a sell at that price. At that price, that's like 5% chance that it's going to happen again. You're just better off skipping that and just finding something that is 90% selling at the price that you need, and 10% it's sold at something weird, or at a loss. Like those are little things that you just learn along the journey of Amazon.
And it's like, oh, but they're really hard to find. And you're right, they are hard, because if it was easy, everyone would be doing it. But once you figure it out, you're like, now that's how I make the money. But you do have to go through that learning curve. Just like, running a marathon, you can't just put on your shoes and go run the marathon tomorrow. It takes time to learn and build up the skill set and endurance to be able to do it. So you hired your first VA, and I appreciate your structure right now is you have 4 sourcing VAs. Is it one admin and one who's also like a buyer? So they check out, should we say, you call them a checkout person. Right. And you do the analysis and say like buy 10, buy 20. But did you have a purchasing manager as well? Like they used to do it all?
Yeah, so up until last year, I had the whole system automated, virtual assistant sourcing, admin doing all the administrative tasks, and then purchasing doing the analyzing and purchasing. The reason why I downscaled my business was obviously to diversify. I took some money out to buy that rental property in Akron, but also because I feel like I wasn't really learning, or because if I don't do the work, I'm not that type of person who's going to continue to study the marketplace or study the inventory or study the product. At that time, I wanted to get bigger into wholesale. So I realized that when I'm over here calling distributors or going to trade shows, that's something I enjoy doing a lot as well. Just going to random trade shows in random cities. I use it as an excuse to get out of the house, really. But I realized when I'm there at a trade show, I really don't know what I'm talking about, what kind of product I need, what buy costs, or what, how many I would need in that month. And I just figured that for me to get better at it, since I'm way too lazy to study that, if I'm not the one doing it, that it'll never happen. So that's actually why I at least figured I'm not going to do the checking out process, because the checking out process just seems a little, not pointless, but it just seems too time consuming for something that I could be doing. So, but I do jump on calls with the VAs, and we do analyze how many sold in about a 2 weeks time period, who the brand is, and all that type of stuff, about how many I think I could sell in that time period. If we undercut so or we price up and wait till whoever runs out, how many would we need? So that type of information, and what buy costs we needed actually to get the margin that we wanted. That type of information, I feel like I only was able to learn with practice and repetition, and tons of repetition. When it comes to Amazon, it's really just repetition of memorizing what brands, what time of the month they sell better, what buy costs and what sell price you should expect if anything changes in the market. Now I know a little bit more about some distributors get more inventory than others, and that type of stuff, but that's just a whole different conversation. But I feel like with the knowledge that I did get as far as analyzing and reviewing and then having someone else check out, it makes the conversations for me so much easier when I'm talking to brand owners or distributors.
Yeah, it's interesting. Obviously, like wherever you are on your Amazon journey, it might be like, oh, I'm just trying to find products to sell. Maybe I'm just trying to like scale the business. And like you're talking about, like I have a fully outsourced business, and then I'm like now I'm like talking about like going after wholesale distributors and like scaling that way. And then obviously like cool, I'm doing other bits. Like there are so many layers to the game, and it's really, really interesting to like obviously A, do myself, and B, listen to other people. Talk me through the journey. You had 2 VAs yourself when you first started. You hired one from us, and then you eventually got to a point where you had sourcers, admin, and a purchaser doing all the buying. So you're sat there doing like nothing, chilling. Like, tell me about that journey. How did you scale from from that, and how long did it take you? And then tell me the journey.
So that was from 2021. From 2023 is kind of when it really took off. So I was already selling for about a year and a half before it really took off. Obviously, a lot of that also had to do because that's when Amazon lending was being their friendliest, um, lending off revenue. So obviously we took that loan, and but it was fortunate that it all kind of fell into place, because at that time we already had gone through your seller academy, so we already had the systems in place. We just had to do more of what we were doing. And at a certain part during that journey, we actually, it's weird. So we worked so hard to be able to buy, but then we actually had to go back and analyze. It doesn't really make sense to buy this anymore. It doesn't really make sense to buy that anymore. And that's a whole conversation in itself, because the whole time you're working with your VAs and they're excited because it's like, oh, 30% ROI. We're going to go ahead and buy it. That meets the criteria. Yeah, but not anymore, because the purchasing manager at the time was spending too much time purchasing inventory that, I mean, we were buying 2 to 4 units, or buying from suppliers that often canceled orders. So at that point, it just makes sense to focus on the most profitable of the most profitable at that time. So you eventually have to learn when to make that switch. Again, if you had the money at 0% interest, it doesn't really, I guess it doesn't really make sense. It doesn't really matter if you're still buying lower ROI products. But we just got to a point where we actually had to, that's why I say Amazon, you're always learning something at every year, every quarter of the year. There's always going to be some pivot that you need to make. And that's just something that we had to do. So, but during that time where I had the whole business automated, I feels like when I needed to do something.
What, you were bored?
Yeah.
It's really
a very good feeling, but at the same time, it's like I'm too fidgety. I couldn't just not do nothing.
It's really interesting. Yeah, I know. I think you were doing like 140 a month, and you're like,
yeah,
I have nothing to do. Like, I know the feeling. I really, really do. So talk me through. So you had the 2 sourcing VAs, the 1 sourcer with us. Then what's your next hire or promotion? Just talk me through like the people. Like, how did that change?
So we had the 3 most important parts established before I ended up hiring more sourcing VAs. And then again, that was another learning in itself. So I'll get into that in a bit. We had purchasing, we had admin, and we had sourcing. And then is when I started hiring. I think at one point I hired 2 VAs at the same time from you guys, and they're both still on the team, actually, doing really well as well. So at the height of the most busiest times that we were at was 4 sourcing, 1 admin, 1 purchasing.
Cool. And then did you hire a purchaser? Did you promote them from a sourcer?
I promoted the virtual assistant that was still with me during the days of Facebook Marketplace.
Cool.
So because she had a pretty good understanding, she went through all the learning bumps. With Amazon, all the policy changes that we've been through, I think she had a pretty good understanding as to what we needed, how much inventory that we needed. And when I say my business was fully automated, I don't want people to think like, oh, that I just completely hands off, because we still actually had meetings with the sourcing VAs, we still had meetings with the administrative VAs, we still had meetings with purchasing. And then sometimes we had team meetings, and sometimes I would just jump on a call with VAs and just analyze all the deals or even source together. So it was automated, but I was still putting in a lot of work with the people that I was working with. But that's actually the purchasing manager that I promoted to purchasing. She started from sourcing and worked her way up.
Cool. What I will say, if anyone's watching, just drop your comments down below, and I'll ask Oscar the questions later on. So I appreciate some have come in already, so thanks for that.
One of the things that I was going to make a question is something that I see from a lot of people that reach out and ask about VAs or how many VAs to get is, we actually learned this from you. Sometimes you're not getting the most out of what you could get out of 1 sourcing virtual assistant that you could possibly get. So I probably didn't need a team as big as what we have, because later we learned we could get so much spend out of 1 VA if we just work more efficiently. For example, stop buying so much cheap inventory, or stop sourcing at places where they're very order sensitive, or cancel, or maybe do what we do now, and we could have started sending out emails to store retailers way sooner, and then maybe we would have been at where we wanted to spend without needing so many VAs. But at the same time, I also don't mind that my team is so big, because each VA is sources in different categories. So with everything happening in Amazon the last couple of months, I'm very comfortable being very wide and not too deep. So it's I mean, any which way you go in Amazon, it's gonna have its pluses or minuses. It's just what works best for you.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Like, if everyone's followed my journey, I've had I think it's like 25 sources in one company before. Like, it was mental, like, crazy $4 million a year in sales in the UK. And like now, we do like 140 a month with just two sources. And, one of my sources will probably do the bulk of that. Like, they'll do on a bad week, they'll do 5k spend. On a good week, they'll do 30k spend. I woke up today and my team were like, we spent 10k. By the time I woke up, I was like, cool, happy days. And it's really interesting because it's easy to hire a VA, but it's hard to build a good team who get great performance. And what you kind of realize, and what I've definitely learned in my journey, is like, having more isn't better. Actually, just having a few very good people changes the game completely. Number one, it's less people to manage, less like people issues. But number two is just, when you make profits and you share the bonuses, the few people just get more money, and so therefore they're happier as well.
But what I have noticed to that as well is, if you have three very good VAs and there's one struggling VAs, it eliminates the excuse of it's too hard to find deals right now when three other VAs are doing it. And then we purposely present our best leads once a week on our team meeting with the sourcing VAs, but then we also share the profit tracker amongst all VAs so everyone can see how much profit everyone generated. I purposely show the bonuses that are being paid out to certain team members. So it kind of raises, at the same time, it raises the level of each VA, or at least it eliminates the excuse portion of it.
Yeah, you want that. I think it's so important. It's like increased accountability, so important. Okay, cool. So you've built a team. Like, obviously you've gone started off drop shipping before, came into Amazon, got two VAs straight away. That was you bought them from a previous business. Hired one VA, was like, wow, these guys are doing it differently. They're learning from that. Continued to scale the business. Got to the point where you had four VAs, one purchasing manager, and one admin. You're doing nothing, getting super bored, and now you're like, cool, I need to get back involved. So you basically, I'm guessing, moved the purchase into a buying role, and then you're doing the analysis of like how many to buy. What are if people are looking at your journey and going, hey, that sounds like where I want to be, because my God, you're doing 6 figures with an outsourced team whilst having a job, traveling, marathons, all this stuff. Like, what are the lessons that you've learned on that journey, on reflection, that people can learn from?
Biggest reflections is, one, I mean, I guess everyone talks about this now in the community, is don't chase the numbers. I feel we're doing almost double the margin that we were doing in 2021, 2022, and some of 2023 just for buying better inventory, or not falling for what you think is a good deal. So for example, I probably won't buy, I'm not saying there's not profitable inventory at Walmart, but it's kind of like an old saying that I guess I like to go by, is if my VAs say they saw something on like TikTok or something going viral, it's like, well, if 90% of the people are going to be looking where it's easy to buy, the Walmarts, Targets, Walgreens, that always has a buy one get half off or whatever, buy two get one free. I'm not saying they're bad places to source. I'm just saying I want to be in the random areas where people are probably not looking. And then obviously it's a little more difficult now because we just got to verify the supplier and whatnot. But the more difficult, so I actually remember this from someone in the community, in your community. She says that unless there's a barrier to get the buy costs that we need for OA products, that we won't buy it. So in other words, if it's too simple to find by like highlighting, click, search on Google or whatever, or however you're sourcing, if it's one of the first products that comes up, we do not buy those anymore. So it's a lot of explaining to the team as to why we're not going to buy it. So if I would have done that way in our first years, 1 or 2 years, we probably would have had a ton of inventory that did not tank. So yeah, I think that's the most important. The biggest tips that I could give someone that's looking to start selling is that, one, just start small, just keep reinvesting into the business till where I always suggest before you're able to pay yourself, you're better off just building the business that you want. So hire that sourcing VA just so they could source, gives you better time to analyze deals, review the deals, but also now it's you and them sourcing, so you have twice as many deals. But it doesn't mean you need to buy all of the deals you guys found. It means you technically have 10 good, well, you should have 10 leads that you could select a top 3 or 4 to buy from. If that works well, then go and do it some more. I mean, if there's one deal in a specific category that did well for you, there's probably others in that category that are doing well for you. And if you find something well, it doesn't mean you have to have a big all catalog like what we do now, because at some point it's pretty messy organizing our catalog and keeping track of it. But then again, I don't do it, so I don't really mind it. But for someone that's doing it, it's you could be very efficient with a small catalog, kind of like I believe Corey has a very lean catalog, and he does big numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Super. Yeah. Carry on.
So yeah, stick to what works. Don't need to start taking out loans. Don't need to start maxing out credit cards. Just learn the principles of Amazon first, and then you can go and add the credit cards and the loans to the business. But um, oh, the biggest thing that I would one of the biggest takeaways is oftentimes when I talk to new sellers is they think they're making money because they're finding deals at 20, 30% ROI. But when I ask them, what did it actually sell at? A lot of the times people don't actually realize that sometimes it's still in their inventory that hasn't even sold. We're almost 150 days into when they bought that product. I try explaining that that's whatever buy cost you spend, that's technically money that you spend that you're probably paying storage fees that you paid to ship to Amazon when you should have just liquidated 3 months ago and at least got your money back. Go back to the lead, see when you found it, see when you bought it, what time of the year was it, and when did the sellers jump on it, or why did the sales rank drop off, or try to figure out what went wrong, because clearly something went wrong if it's still 150 days in inventory and it hasn't sold. So just learn that way. Always go back and review uh, your sales and seeing is your kind of like when you make your MSCU or whatever it's called, what you estimated and what it actually sell at. Are you close to that? Are you doing better than that? Or are you estimating too high? So that's something that we do religiously in my business with my team of VAs is keeping track of those estimated sell prices.
Yeah, I think it's like amazing, but like a couple of great sayings. A fool never learns, a smart person learns from mistakes, and a wise person learns the mistakes of others. And we see it. And by the way, I'll say it myself. I have run my Amazon business, and I probably say my UK Amazon business by being a fool. We just bought stuff, sold it, bought stuff, sold it. And you talked about it like don't chase the numbers, instead like focus on getting the profitability. We do. What do we do now? We do like 1.5 million a year in the US, and we do 150,000 a month, about 140,000 a month, and in the UK we did 400,000 a month. But we make more money now than we did with 400,000 a month, with like a much smaller team, way less effort, so much easier. And why? Because it was just a really big operation with lots of costs, and the margin was like declining. Hence why we closed the UK down. But the US is like just simpler. And again, why we learned from the mistakes. We improved the business model. We got better. We had a simpler team, better VAs. Made such a difference. But I think like everything you shared is so valuable. Like you've got to go into your business. You've got to why did that work? Why did that not work? What can we do more of that and less of that? Because too many times, especially like when you see it with sourcing VAs and even sellers, they will see like, oh look, we're going to get 30% ROI, but they don't see like what happens at sale, and they don't really know. There's a really good point you made, which is called like, I don't know if how well my product's doing or like my business is doing. So I'll kind of share some numbers which I think about. Like I think it's 2 key numbers which are really, really good to help people understand. One, gross margin at sale. So whether you have seller board, SDK, inventory lab, we always try and look to be over 15% gross margin. So that's a key metric we look at. I think last month we were like 18.9, so really, really good. Very happy with that. So that's one key metric. And then the other one we look at is Amazon Seller Central, go to IPI score. And under the IPI score is 4 numbers. One of them is called your sell-through rate. You want that above 2. We're currently 3, which basically talks about how fast you're selling your stock. So when you talk about like, oh, you've got stock stuck in there for like 180 days, sometimes 365 plus, you're just not shifting the stock. Like you think you're making profit, but you're not. You've got basically all this old stock is called dead stock. That's where you're going to lose money, and that you've got money stuck there. So we basically say anything which is old, we're clearing out, and your sell-through rate will help you understand that level. We'll kind of jump onto questions in a minute. So I just want to ask some final questions. Like, obviously, I appreciate you, your Amazon business. You're very fidgety. You got lots going on. You're doing your Amazon business. You talked about, like, why did you get into marathon running? Why did you get into property? Why not double down on Amazon even more? And also, why not quit? Why not quit the job?
A couple of reasons. So I actually started real estate investing. I had the first property before Amazon, but I was actually I talked about this before. I was actually one of those kids that got scammed into the whole Amazon automation thing or whatever. So I was thinking, oh, simple. I'll just invest in that. They get money and buy more real estate. Long story short, yeah, that did not work how many people thought it was going to work. But then luckily I actually just learned it myself. But yeah, I always feel it's a good idea with Amazon. I mean, it's a very profitable opportunity, but it's also now, I guess you could say, more risk. Technically, I don't know. I don't even know if that makes sense. Because we still haven't had any issues, but we're very specific with what we do. We're very organized in how we keep track of invoices, and then we also verify with who we buy from. So, but then again, in real estate, there's risk too. Sometimes I go months without being paid rent, so I guess that's not cool either. But I actually just want to diversify. So I think the last question you asked is why haven't I left my W-2 job? So I'm actually, during this whole time that I was doing Amazon, I was also in the Masters of Social Work program. So I literally have 2 classes left to get my master's degree in social work. So at this point, I might as well finish it. And then why I haven't left my W-2 job? Well, some of the small tedious tasks might be or might not be outsourced as well. So
we make no comments.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know, there's a really good story about like a guy. I think it's a guy. He outsourced. He's an IT tester. He outsourced his whole job to India, and basically just didn't do anything. And he did it for like years. And then they eventually found out, and they fired the guy. And it's like, no, make that guy a manager, because like he's smart. Like he's getting his pay. He's using a portion of that to get the job done. He was their best employee, by the way. Always got everything done on time. But like, no, he just learned how to delegate. And by the way, this is the skills of entrepreneurship. Like using other people's, basically using leverage to get what you want: capital, time, money, code, and networks. So important. Talk me through, like, what does the future hold for you? What's the plan?
We're still going to continue selling on Amazon till we get the boot, but I still think there's tons of opportunity, especially the way we manage our business. We're very careful with what we do. But at the same time, I do want to be a little more business oriented, so go a little more brand direct, or even open up more partnerships with retailers around here. I know that there's got to be some franchise employees that just have to hit their quotas, because I was once in their position, so it can't be too difficult. So that's my goal: continue to grow on Amazon in that way. Still being able to employ my team. They're happy. I'm happy. The business is still making money. I probably won't ever stop Amazon because we do not pay for very much of the travel that we do. So like when we were in Mexico this whole last week, most of the hotels and the flights were paid for by points. That I don't see any other business that you could generate as many cashback or rewards points, or even top cashback points, other than like an inventory-based business. And I haven't found anything other than Amazon that gives that opportunity. But with that being said, I just want to continue. So continuing being a better business owner, continuing to develop my team. So I don't think, before I used to think a VA could only be so good, but now I actually think it's how much time you invest in your VA sourcing and just teaching them what you know, is they could become much better. So that's what I plan to do for the next 2 years. Still continue doing the same stuff, stay busy.
Yeah, I agree. I think 2 things I kind of like take away, or I'll share. Like, I remember when we were running the UK. Obviously, I wasn't making much physical cash profits, but like we were spending 2 million plus a year on credit cards. So like, I lived in 5-star hotels for 3 months straight. Like, traveled the world, Dubai, everything. Philippines, went and saw the team. My girlfriend at the time hated me, but I had a great fun. But it was like, you can have a really nice life. Like, and again, I think only if you do like advertising, like Facebook ads, paid ads is the only other business model where you can do credit card points. And not only that, because you're paying on credit cards, you can also use like top cashback and cashback as well. Absolutely crazy. So really, really good. The one key takeaway I kind of like read between the lines of what you've done, which I think is a really important thing I just want to state, is as business owners, we get so caught up doing the small things in our business which don't really make a difference. And there's a thing you said at the very beginning, which is, and you kind of reference back to it again, there's like, I was once an employee who had a quota to meet. And if we kind of bring it back to what you said at the beginning, is like, you now do RA, you now go around to local stores, get to know the managers, and you can just drop in and drop 5K on an order very simply. And it's those are the small things which make a big difference, but we're so caught up doing the day-to-day small operational stuff in our business that we don't have time to figure out those big moves, which basically just allow you to drop 5, 10, 20, 50K, like bang. Like, they change the game for your business. And, it's like, those are the things which I think people should take away from this, is the fact that like, there is like, Amazon's a great opportunity. Yes, there are risks with it, but it's a great business to do. But it is a business, and in a business there's lots of work. But if you can leverage other people's time to free up yourself, then you can work on the high value stuff, which is really about growing the business by working on the business rather than in it day to day, which I think is such an important process. We'll jump over to questions in a second, but if anyone wants to get in contact with you, what's the best way?
I am most active on Instagram. I believe my username is OF Badia.
Fantastic. So obviously check him out on Instagram. Obviously you'll see him. If you want to know, obviously Oscar as well, he's done the interview YouTube video on my channel as well, Fast Track FBA. So you can see that. We talked about like Amazon automation and obviously how you scale to 140. So we'll jump over to, before we jump into questions, if anyone wants to get the 90-day 30K VA scaling challenge, this is a guide that we've got that's going to help you to scale. Basically everything we've learned, time tracking, how to hire VAs, how to manage them, onboard them, where to hire them from. We've got copies of contracts, copies of tests that you can use. All of this stuff, everything that we've learned, that we've shared with Oscar, you can get for free just by commenting 30K VA. And if you do want a company to hire for you, then do check out Fast Track FBA. This is what we do, and we've done it for Oscar. And the one thing I'll share with you, just to be really crystal clear, at the end of this month, we are going to be closing the VA Academy for a period of time while we support those sellers. And we're doing some reorganization, but we just want to make sure that the sellers who've chosen with us, we've got quite a lot already in the challenge, that 30K challenge, we just want to make sure they're getting the full service, and we're really focusing on getting their business up where it needs to be. So check it out, and if you want to know more, just comment VA down below and we'll reach out afterwards. So Oscar, a couple of questions for you. Someone mentioned, Alona mentioned, you've got a full-time job, and that's a yes. Obviously we talked about that, is that right? Are you happy to share like what it is? What do you do?
Yeah, I'm a social worker, so I currently help homeless find housing. So I think job title is
housing. You're not a banker or anything then?
What happened?
You're not a banker or anything then?
No, I probably should have gone down that road, but somehow I ended up as a social worker. But it's actually quite funny because a lot of the same stuff that you learn as a social worker working with like youth and whatnot, it's the exact same stuff you read in business books anyway.
Fantastic. No, I love it. Cool. And then Alona also mentioned, how many hours per day do you spend on Amazon? And also she mentioned, I saw you working with your girlfriend. So, what does she do as well, and how does that work?
Per day, when I was working on Amazon, the most was about an hour, 2 hours a day. And again, that's mostly just the meetings that I have with the team members. And then now, I think what she's referencing, my fiance, is when that inventory that I buy from local stores, I have to bring it back, since obviously I can't ship that to a prep. We have no prep centers here that for retail arbitrage people. So we just prep that ourselves and get that shipped out. And then, so you have a help of, yeah, I have a team of 5 VAs. Yeah.
And like you said, obviously you were doing an hour and a half when you were like before. What are you doing now? Like Like, what are you doing on the OA side, and then how much are you doing on the RA side, or OA and wholesale, and then RA?
On the OA side, I do very little. Spend about an hour a day just reviewing the leads and writing down how many I want to buy.
Cool.
When I still do my weekly team meetings, so that's about 4 hours a week I'm spending on meetings, and that's to review the deals that they submitted, or just acting as support for a VA that needs more support and guidance, or just kind of like explaining like what I did not like, or just getting their point of view. What did you like in this lead that you submitted? Why you decided, just having opening up a conversation on that. And then most of the RA will, till I am able to hire one of the little cousins to outsource that. That's what I'm doing right now, just building relationships in the community. And that I only spend about 2 to 3 hours a day as well.
That's right. Is that the goal, to hire someone to do the prep for you?
Outsource the prep here, and then outsource the retail arbitrage. That's the goal.
And again, I think if people are listening, as business owners, you start learning how to use leverage to get more done in the same amount of time. So like you realize that, I can pay someone $50 to make me $100. Well, that works well. Cool, I'll do that. That means I have to do nothing. You talked about how you've invested in a house, you haven't even gone there, you've never seen it, it's done. You're like, wow. And again, this is like, you can do more, make more money, more opportunities whilst traveling the world, doing it all remotely. And I love that. Like, man after my own heart. Absolutely amazing. We've got someone from IG said, with the VAs, do they source products for you, or do you have to train them to do that? How does it work?
So the VA that we hired from Fast Track, about 80 to 90%, they already have an understanding of what they had to do. Again, every seller has their own criteria. You don't just want to do too general. So I actually, from there, took them and put them in a specific category that I wanted to source. At the time when we hired, so like I mentioned earlier, our business has changed. The criteria to the way I manage my business and what we accept and what we don't accept has changed through the years. So back then I used to take inventory as low as 20% ROI when I was starting. Now we don't really touch anything less than 15% margin unless they have a good reason as to why they submitted it. Does it have really high cash back, like 10% or higher, or is it selling in the thousands or hundreds times per month and there's very few sellers? But that's the part that you would have to train them to do for you. But for the most part, they come with a very good understanding of what product research is.
Agreed. I think it's really important. Like they've covered that. You're not teaching them like how to use seller amp or like what is the buy box. Like they get that. It's like you now apply them to how your business operates, and we all have a slightly different business model or like variations on it. But like, this is what we do. I want you to focus on beauty in Walmart, for example. Like, and these are the brands we're after. So really, really important. JL said, "Do you still do drop shipping?"
No, I stopped drop shipping.
Why?
Well, it was too good to be true.
Yeah. Is it?
I know people got suspended from drop shipping, so anyone that approaches you about drop shipping, probably run. Take your money and you'll never see that again.
So if anyone wants to know, drop shipping is technically like you can do it, but you can only do it from the distributors manufacturer directly to the customer if they white label the boxes and everything. But it's very rare that you get that. You cannot do it from retail to the customer. That you can't do, which is the common one people try and teach or talk about. And do you do Amazon automation still? You did talk about that earlier.
That didn't even. I just paid and lost my money. That didn't go anywhere.
How much do you pay? Can I ask?
20 in the 20,000.
Careful out there, people.
Yeah.
Right. Lona mentioned, I can't even imagine I can trust someone to purchase on my behalf. How is it even possible to train them to go so high level? Is it like you have a criteria she checks, and how did you train her or Fast Track FBA? So I'm guessing this is in regards to like your purchaser. Tell me about that.
So when I work very closely with my VA. So when I was working with a purchasing manager to teach her, what I wanted is we reviewed hundreds of deals together, and then just asking, first I would explain how many I think we want to buy. At the time, we weren't buying more than 30-day supply. Now we buy 2-week supply. But then that's all stuff that they can learn very easily. And then as far as, so actually almost all of that they could learn very easily. Is it a consistent buy box price? The purchasing manager has nothing to do with the sourcing VA, so she's not more inclined to buy the purchase because she wants to or not. So she was very good at rejecting deals and even rejecting some deals that I would have bought. And then she explained why. And then as far as worrying about credit cards and whatnot, we use LastPass to save information. But at the same time, I still go in and spot check, and I have the admin go and spot check all the purchases, make sure the address is. So we've never had actual issues, um, like internal like issues that you would deal with if you ran your own retail business, as far as internal theft and whatnot. That's you don't really have nothing to worry about that, especially if you have a bookkeeper as well.
Yeah, it's funny. I was talking to someone about it yesterday. I was like, we've hired over 1,000 VAs for 500 clients. A lot of them have been trained to purchaser. I think I've had 13, 15 purchases in my times. And then obviously we know the wider community, and it's like, I don't think I've ever heard of a single VA stealing credit card details and doing something with it. Like, I've never heard of that. Like, we've had theft, as in like, or not theft, like card fraud, where someone's bought flights in Europe. But obviously that wouldn't be the Philippines, because like, what are they going to do? Fly to Europe to try and use these things? Like, it's not going to work. So we've had that, but like, it's just, I've never seen a VA steal it. Now, I'm not saying you should just go hire a VA tomorrow and give them your credit card, not at all. You should definitely like get to know them and vet. And
No, yeah,
like,
I worked with my VA for almost 2 years, 3 years before they started doing that.
Exactly. I think we're like 6 months minimum, and like they're like, wow, these guys are great, before we even like, hey, let's talk about getting a purchasing manager. You've got to see they're good at deal analysis. Alona mentioned, what is a red flag for you when you look like you need to fire a VA? Do you have strange situations with your VAs, like they're always sick? Have you had to fire a VA before, and like what are the red flags you look for?
Interestingly enough, I have had to fire a VA, but then at the same time, once I was also very patient with VA, and for an hour straight, we just started sourcing together, and now she's very, very good VA. But I would have fired her if I explained myself, and then I first sometimes understand if it's like a communication issue, or if it's like, is she not understanding, or is she just not wanting to go and correct the behaviors or change the way she's doing something. Once I understood it was probably the way that I was explaining myself, or then we could work with all of that. But if they just continue doing the same thing over and over and over again after you do things that you do intentionally to make sure they understand, like kind of like ask them open-ended questions to, why did you submit this, or what did you like about this, or oftentimes if you do have those type of conversations, it's very rare that they're going to continue submitting the same type of leads, especially if you jump on a live call with them, which I do regularly. All my calls with the VAs are camera on, either one-on-one or in a group, and then explain them in front of everyone why they did that. And usually they probably won't do it again. And if they do, well, then that's just, I haven't had too many of those issues, but that's something that you probably have to fire. And it's probably better doing it right away rather than waiting.
Yeah, I think the fundamental level is like, is it a will or a skill issue? Like, skills generally could be communication, they don't understand. So, like, oh, I don't want you to buy from Walmart anymore. Okay, cool. So tomorrow, if you start sourcing, will you look for deals on Walmart? No. Okay, if you go to like Google and type in a product and you see a product which is on Walmart, will you click on that product? No. You're like, cool, now you understand what I'm doing. And then tomorrow if they come back and go, sir, I've got a deal from Walmart, you're like, what the fuck? Like, you just, or like, they don't care. You're like, okay, cool, I'm just, there's no point, it's not going to work. So yeah, let them go. You've got to move on quick, and I think that's a really important point. Question from Instagram, do you do more OA now or wholesale?
We still do more OA. At some point I want to do more wholesale than OA, but it's just always just very simple, very profitable, very cashback friendly. So as much as I want to be pure wholesale, I'm very comfortable with sticking to OA.
Yeah, I love the cashback. I love the points. The points are incredible. Like when you've flown business class and obviously stayed in some nice hotels, you're like, I want to do more of that.
So I actually have another one for you. Apart from the business class, apart from the points, that big mistake that I was telling you about earlier, that I spent almost double than what I thought I was going to spend on the rehab of the house that I just fixed in Akron. So top cashback you can redeem for Home Depot gift cards and Lowe's gift cards. So a lot of that was also, it did not hurt. It hurt, but it didn't hurt as bad because a lot of that was paid with cashback as well.
Wow. And then also when you're using, like, when you're getting the cards, they give you a discount as well, don't they?
Yeah.
So you get like, you're not getting like a $1 to $1, you get like $1.10 to $1.
Yeah,
you're like,
transfer or whatever.
Yeah, brilliant. Absolutely love it. I think so. Kind of final question. What do you mean P&L? Or please explain searching together. What does searching together mean? Let me ask that question.
Jumping on the, I think she means when I was sourcing with my VAs is jump on a meeting with them, share, have them share your screen, and you source together.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and I like the point you said. Cameras on, screen share, really like communicate like this. Really, really important. Not
Make
like
it as close to an office environment as you can.
correct. You gotta like have them. You know, it's like when you're next to each other on the computer. And like, look at this. Yeah, like really explain it. Oh, sorry, we've got a few more come in. FB, how? So obviously you've hired VAs from us. Like, how freshly trained are the VAs from the academy? And like, what is the spend? Like, what's your experience been?
So back then when we were spending about 30 days worth of inventory, I think we started off close to, I can't give you an exact number because when they first started, it was almost a year or two ago. Now we shoot for at least 3,500 per week per VA. But again, that changes depending on the reason why I like having a big team is because I can encourage a competitive environment. So even if a VA submits 15% margin, 30% ROI in grocery category, if the VA in sports and outdoors or in the tools, industrial, scientific, or whatever, submits the same an even more profitable lead, I'm going to have the explanation as to the criteria is 15% margin, but if over here they're finding 17, 18, 19% margin, we're going to spend more over there regardless of did you meet the criteria or not. It's what's better for the business, not just. So that's conversations that you can encourage competitive environments to, again, increase the level of sourcing.
Great, I like that, always having VAs working against each other. Just to talk you through our numbers we talk about, so the minimums we expect within the VAs we place with our clients, spend per week. Month one, $500 spend per week or pounds. Month two, $1,000 or pounds spend per week. And then month three, $1,500 spend per week in month or pounds. And obviously you'll see that grow. So like by month five, you hit 2,500. You know, Oscar was talking about like 3,500. And if you're good, you know where to source, you know, that can blow up. So like, you know, our top VA, I think I mentioned it, a bad week is 5K, a good week is 30K. So, you know, like, again, it just gets really interesting once you start playing the game at different levels. So really good. So I think final question coming in now. We've got Rosie said that you said that in the past, the VA trained you for sourcing. However, now do you train them on sourcing? And if yes, any specific methods that you use? So I think this is one of those questions around like, is there a method that you use, or is it like, do you vary it? How does that like training go when you get your VA? What does that look like?
So most of the VAs, I think she mentioned a little bit about the VA taught us. That was in the very beginning when I was first learning Amazon. After that, then I went through a couple of different courses. As by now, I don't know, many people would tell that I don't mind paying for coaching. So I went through Chris Grant's, went through a couple other kids as far as sourcing, and I just found one method that I like my VAs to train in. So obviously they understand manual sourcing, they understand storefront stocking. What we do, since we're in category, is we specifically look for sellers that have a primary category of what I want them to be in, that have good ratings, such as 85% reviews and at least 100, 85% rating or higher and at least 100 to 200 to 300 reviews, somewhere in that category. We make a list of about 100 of those sellers, and then we throw them and keep a product finder. We filter by that category that they're assigned to. And then from there on, you just manipulate the sales rank or the buy cost price, how many sellers you want. And that's what I have my VAs sourcing in now.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's like storefront stalking 2.0 using Keeper as well. Yeah, really agree. And I think it's a great way to do it. And there's lots of little hacks that we've kind of shared with that as well. You'll be, just on a side note, obviously I live in Mexico, you'll be amazed the amount of sellers who have like 25% rating on reviews. I'm like, how the fuck are you still alive? Like, how are you still selling? In Mexico, the standard is just so bad for Amazon sellers. Absolutely awful. Right. Oscar, I appreciate your time. Again, I just want to ask you the question, if anyone's getting in contact with you, learn more, what's the best way to get in contact with you?
The place where I'm more active is on Instagram under the name OF Padilla.
Cool. Fantastic. So do check that out. And what I will say is, if you guys want to get the 30K VA scaling guide, just comment 30K VA down below. You can go to the Fast Track FBA website, download that as well. But the whole point behind this is like, look, as business owners, we can't do it all. There's only 24 hours in the day. And so what have we learned? What Oscar been sharing is like getting VAs using leverage. You know, we use capital leverage to grow our business in Amazon, credit cards, loans, but also we use labor leverage, VAs to help do this time things And Oscar's done it so well that not only he actually outsourced his business, he started even using them for his property, which I think is amazing. And obviously he didn't even go see the property. So he's using not only a VA to help him there, but also the external contractors to support him there, which I think is incredible. And the whole kind of point behind this is like, if you want to grow, you can't do it all yourself. That's like the fundamental part of it. You have to get good people. And if you do want to hire some good people, come look at us in Fast Track FBA VA Academy. We are doing the 30K challenge. And I will be honest with you, as of the end of January, we are going to close to new customers for at least 1 month while we support these customers currently in the 30K VA challenge. So if you're looking for a fully trained VA like Oscar got from us, come speak to us, check out Fast Track FBA, drop us a message, and we can talk more and tell you what you're about. But you've got until the end of January. Oscar, for myself and everyone watching, I just want to say a really big thank you. I look forward to catching up with you and seeing more flights, more travel, and I hope you obviously get the marathon and the time that you're looking for in the future. Honestly, hats off to you. Amazing results. Thank you.
Thank you very much. See you later.
Take care.